Well, safe management compliance is one of the key conditions to enter phase 3, but experts are pointing to another major stumbling block, the inadequate adoption of TraceTogether, be it the token or the app. And so they say it's not likely that phase 3 will happen by the end of the year. Well, joining me to discuss this is Associate Professor Alex Cook, Vice Dean of Research at the Salisbury Hawk School of Public Health. So, Professor, as you know, a 70% TraceTogether take-up rate is one of the conditions for us to enter phase 3. The current take-up rate is only 50.8% right now. Are you able to project then when we'll be able to reach the 70% target and thus possibly phase 3?
If we go back in time to around June, the take-up rate was around about a third. So that means that over the last 6 months, we've only really been able to increase uptake by about 15%. So naively extrapolating that forward suggests that it would take about another 6 months, or middle of next year, before we finally hit the 70% participation rate. I think that's a little bit pessimistic, however. There's two reasons why I think that the next month may see a much faster uptake of TraceTogether, though. So one is that the tokens were delayed a little bit in how they were delivered to the population, and that should be improved over the next month, I think. And the second is that many venues will start to require TraceTogether to be installed on the phone or to have the token if you want to go into the mall or the restaurant, for example. So that will give people a strong motivation for having TraceTogether, and I'm hopeful that we'll get up to 70% soon.
Well, it's not just about TraceTogether that is a key requirement for us to enter phase 3. It's about, of course, safe management compliance. But we're seeing cases of, safe management breaches, like what happened at a Foot Locker and Gemma Steakhouse. So when it comes to meting out penalties in these two cases, should the individuals be punished as well for this to, to be just much more effective overall?
Yes, I think it depends on the exact conditions of the case. In some cases, it could be the individuals who were queuing up, for example, to enter a store, were abiding by the rules as it seemed to them, and it was therefore just that the store had an issue. I think the other possibility is that you could have, for example, in a restaurant where people are mingling between tables, and then in that case, the blame is somewhat shared between both the restaurant as well as the customers of the restaurant. I think in that case, penalties to both sets may be necessary in order to ensure compliance.
Right. Can we go back to the take-up rate of TraceTogether? I guess we all know it's kind of a slow progress. So does that indicate anything about people's readiness when it comes to getting vaccinated when the time comes?
No, I think they're quite different. So the hesitancy around about TraceTogether has been quite technical things like the fear that it will drain the batteries, they'll slow down the phone, or the fear of being under surveillance from the government. Whereas I think that the likely barriers to vaccination are likely going to be more things like fear of getting a jab or worries about potential side effects. And so I think that the fraction of people who are worried about vaccination may be quite a bit less than those who are worried about TraceTogether.
So on the topic of vaccinations, perhaps it's wise to revisit this again, but how much of Singapore's population needs to be vaccinated in order to achieve herd immunity, Professor?
So this depends a lot on what the effectiveness of the vaccines are that finally reach our market. The trials which had results out over the last month have been really very promising, showing a vaccine efficacy of around about 90%. Now, vaccine efficacy is not the same as the actual effect when it's rolled out en masse in the population. Not everyone will end up being compliant to taking multiple doses, for example. And so it may be that the vaccine effectiveness is less than 90%. But if it is still 90%, I would suggest that actually to get herd immunity, we only need perhaps 60% of the population to be vaccinated. That's a really optimistic target, and I'm hopeful that we can achieve that over the next year.
Okay, well, thank you so much for taking the time today, Professor. I've been speaking to Associate Professor Alex Cook, Vice Dean of Research at the Salisbury Hawk School of Public Health at NUS.